And welcome to a special episode of Off the Couch, a live episode. I'm Dr. Greg Case. I'm here with producer Brian Gomez.
Happy Monday, you guys.
But we have today a very special episode because the election's getting us all a little bit, nail-bitey and anxious and panicked. I know I've been there. So today we're diving into the wild world of election anxiety with none other than the brilliantly bold and unapologetically hilarious Monique Marvez.
Yay, me!
And known for her razor-sharp wit and no-nonsense take on life's toughest moments, Monique has a knack for finding laughter in the chaos. She's here to help us break down why election season makes us all a little or a lot more anxious, certainly me, and what to do about it. So buckle up, because with Monique on the mic, we're in for a wild and thought-provoking ride. Welcome, Monique.
Welcome, Dr. Greg. Now, here's the thing. I'd rather be known hashtag sexty, and she looks amazing naked, not just for her age. That's the two things I'm spreading now. If we're going to spread rumors on the internet, those are the ones I want.
Those are excellent. There's no better word than I like than sexty, by the way.
Sexty, hashtag sexty.
I don't know why every 60-year-old does not use sexty for the next 9 years, 10
We're
years.
using it.
Yeah, I'm using it
We're starting
right
it
now.
today. Sexty.
We are sexty people. So, hey, welcome everyone. So, an American Psychological Association survey found that more than 82% of adults have felt that this election cycle, are we laughing already?
Yes.
82%. That's 8 in 10 people. The election cycle has been an emotional roller coaster. I'm wondering where the other 18% were, because
drugs.
And 25% say they've lost sleep over it. And a recent American Psychiatric Association poll, there are two different organizations, found that more than 73% of Americans say they felt stressed about the election. That's 7 in 10. So we are here to talk about something really important.
Well, first of all, I want to be very sidebar.
Yeah.
The first joke of the official live stream. The number 82 always makes me laugh, because when I was in retail back in the day, when somebody wrote a check, you had to do a little T graph, and you had to take their driver's license. Remember back in the day?
I remember.
There was retail training. You had to take their driver's license and a credit card to secure the check. So I worked with this old lady, and I'm going to say her name because she's probably dead. Her name was Betty Hornsby, and I loved her. So I can say it because it's a nice thing. She was older at the time, and she had a wicked sense of humor. And every time someone would hand Betty a check, Betty would look at the check, and if it said like 432 Elm Street, she would say, "Oh, 432 Elm Street. Do you know a Dickie Withers at 82? And she would just say it. And then people would be like, Richard Withers at 8. I don't know anybody on that 8200 block. And meanwhile, we'd all be dying laughing. So I said, one day I'm going to start a production company, Dickie Withers 82. But here's the thing. Now with Viagra, it's not even a true joke anymore. Like, Dickie could keep going way past 82.
Pharmaceuticals ruin it for all of us.
Yeah, they've ruined the best. But yeah, so anytime I hear, I was going to be Dickie Withers Productions. Anytime I hear 82, I can picture Betty Hornsby, totally straight face, just stringing along some customer. And so first joke of the day. So I actually wrote out thoughts. I never write out thoughts. I wrote out thoughts.
This sounds promising.
Let me know when you want to hear the first thought.
Well, we can't hold back. So what is the first thought?
The first thought was that this election, this is a Moniqueism that I want you all to jot down, at least in your memory. It's never about the thing. Whatever you're fighting about, whatever you're worried about, whatever you think the thing is, it's never about the thing. It's like 8 things behind the thing. Even if you're having a fight with your spouse, you're not fighting about he left the toilet seat up.
That's right.
So this election is not about the election. It's not about the thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's about the individual's beliefs about the thing.
That's correct. We are on the same page with that.
Okay, I know
Tell
you
me
have
more.
like a study, but I'm going to keep
No
going,
study.
and then you give me the study.
No study.
No,
that
you've
is
always
a
got a
principle in psychology.
Oh, it's a principle in psychology?
Yeah.
Knuckles. I'm so glad you went to school. Okay, so number one is that I always tell people, because I love New Orleans and my dog is named Nola, I always say that I don't believe in voodoo. But I know that voodoo works.
Oh, honey, if you've been to New Orleans, you know that voodoo's
real. Voodoo works. Voodoo is real, because voodoo is about beliefs. It's an agreement you have with the person.
Yeah. That's
And
right.
if you are in agreement, so let's suppose that politics is about a group of people that have made an unconscious agreement 6 levels below what's really going on. And if you get to the core of why you believe that this person needs to win in order for you to be happy, once you get to the core belief, you can dismantle it and know you're going to be happy no matter who wins.
So ultimately, I think that is the answer.
Well, of course it is, and
Yeah.
I'll tell you why. Because right now we're all suffering from voodoo. We've all bought into the voodoo.
Well, I think this is part of the problem with the American situation.
It's
Strictly-
global at this point.
It
It's
is
not
global
even
at this
American.
point.
It's
I
global.
agree, but
The world is watching us.
I can only stay within the boundaries. Do you know that in this, my most popular cities are actually in Australia and London?
Hello.
Thank you.
Welcome
Yours too?
to. Oh no, I get emails from Africa all the time.
Oh, isn't that wild?
Thank you for finally getting to West Africa, Miss Marvez. I got that one.
No, I just find this interesting because that TV show I was on that was also popular in Australia. So I don't know what it is. You know,
Maybe we're big in Japan and we don't
Believe
even
me,
know
I
it.
love the Australian people, so I was thrilled. But the bottom line is I can only talk within the U.S. borders.
And also within your education.
Within my education,
Yeah.
and to try to keep it within the bounds.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think this is a uniquely, well, I mean, all over the world, but we're certainly experiencing it here as if the burner's been turned up.
Mm-hmm.
That we're experiencing this division within people. And to me,
Tectonic shift.
division is one of the biggest problems in American society. I've often thought that our purpose as human beings is to come together. And I've often been horrified at all these attempts to divide us as a human species.
Well, divide and conquer. If you can turn people
Yes.
against each other, then the people in power, the handful of people at the top of the pyramid use divide and conquer to stay rich, to stay in power, to stay, whatever energetic word you want to use. But the bottom line is, and I'm just going to say it, it comes down to enslavement. If you can keep people afraid, you can keep control over them.
Anxious or depressed. Yes.
Yeah, anxious or
fearful or depressed or anxious or depressed.
That's why
Because anxiety is
liberators-
really just thinking about the future. Fear, like in the moment, I'm freaking out.
Yeah.
But also
That's
anxiety.
why comedians are liberators.
They are.
I know. I love my job.
That's why, to me, comedy is really, they say laughter is the best medicine. It's such a corny saying, but let's face it, it's correct. I actually think it is one of the very best forms of medicine. It does help with depression. I've often believed that depression is a form, and I've said it before, to keep people down.
Amen.
And they keep themselves down.
Yep.
It's like they've learned to just
It's the devil. I call it the demon of doubt. If you can make someone doubt themselves, their surroundings, the people who love them, if you can drive the wedge of doubt between a human and what they believe, it's Bruce Springsteen's greatest line, Tunnel of Love. God help the man who doubts what he's sure of.
That's nice.
I know. Well, is that
That's-
you, baby, or just a brilliant disguise?
Is that another line? That
It's
I don't
a
know?
song called Brilliant
Oh.
Disguise, and that's the line. And I'm a big believer that there's things in art that are these moments of clarity where people are channeling something bigger than themselves, and that just stays in your mind because it's the thing that will free you. We get stuck to things like, why do you think people like Frozen? Stupid movie. But let it go.
Let It Go, I have to say, by the way, is
Mm-hmm.
one of the most wonderful songs, and I've often quoted that to clients. I'm not even going to I've often used that particular song in therapy. It's embarrassing to admit because
Why?
I think it's so brilliant.
It's the
And
movie.
if you can just remember to say it to yourself during some hard times when you're actually holding on to a resentment or holding on to an emotion that's hurting you or a belief, and if you can start to say, let it go, let it go.
I'm going to even take it a step further. Now, when I'm challenged, I have a brand new car. I love my car. I had something happen where the heel of my boot got stuck on the gas, and I actually accelerated going into a parking space and slammed on the brakes. Everybody looked at me like I was on drugs or something, and I dinged the corner of my lucky I slammed on the brakes, but my brand new car has a tiny ding on the front right corner where I hit the curb, right? The old me, the OCD old me would have been so bothered by it. It would have made me crazy till I could get to the dealership. I went upstairs, I did hot yoga, I sweated my brains out. I said, it's a thing. And I may get emotional. The gift of the death of my brother. Life is short, death is sure. A problem that can be fixed by writing a check is not a problem. We have to get back to that. Nothing that happens tomorrow is going to change your life on a cellular, spiritual, familial. The people who love you today will love you tomorrow. It's not going to stop. I don't care who you vote for. If you're in my life and I love you, vote your conscience. I will still love you.
That's right.
I don't even know why people feel the need to talk about it.
I'm exactly the same. Well, I talk about it just because I talk about everything.
No, but I mean who you vote for. There's a reason the booth has a curtain. There's a reason that the piece of paper folds in half.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree. And I would not excommunicate anyone in my life. And I do understand that people do because of certain choices that people make. At the same time, it just violates everything that I believe in, which I believe that we're here to come together.
Amen.
It's just a different thing altogether.
But going back to beliefs, I want everyone here to ask themselves why they believe that their person has to win. Because I guarantee you, if you go 6 layers below, because this will happen, because this will happen, because this will happen, because this will happen. You know, a lot of people, when Obama won, I have friends that are, on both sides, and everybody's like, it's going to turn into, dogs and cats having sex in the street. This eggplant-colored person of no discernible religion with the middle name of Hassan, or Hussein. He's got one of those names. Is going to be what? Guess what? I have friends that are super liberal that were pissed that he didn't do enough. He didn't empty Guantanamo. He didn't change. You know what I mean? He caught Osama bin Laden. Okay, that's good. But there was a whole lot of things that people thought, if I vote for him, this is all going to happen. Guess what? Didn't happen.
No, this was in fact, this was kind of my biggest peeve about when Obama won, during that election, that first election of his, is that people were threatening things like it'll be the end of America, number one, and number two, that if he wins, all will be solved. Like, he'll stop the Afghanistan war. And I remember saying to a class I was teaching, a graduate class of psychology graduate students, and I said, he's a man. Do you know how hard the presidency is?
Have you seen how much they age?
Because the checks and balances of all of this, I go, he's making these promises, but he'll do what he can. It just won't be.
Which ain't much.
You just can only do so much. Well, now, but though I do have to.
Being in the White House is like being married to an opera singer. Like, you've got a big, overbearing wife saying no all the time.
You do have that with both, if people understand the checks and balances
Absolutely.
system. But what worries me, and I'm wondering if you think about this, what about with the recent Supreme Court decision saying that he does have absolute immunity if he goes into office? So if we put the wrong person in office who doesn't have a moral structure, they can do whatever they want and have absolute immunity. Does that increase the fear level?
Not for me. And I'll tell you why, because I go a step further.
Mm-hmm.
None of this exists in my world. I live in the matrix. So if anything challenges me, I ask myself, what's the opportunity? And for me, the opportunity is to double down on positivity, to double down on supporting the people around me, to double down on my personal belief that everything is going in the right direction. And I'll tell you why. Because I've been alive long enough to know that you can't remake a live action Dalmatians, 101 Dalmatians, and sing "We Are Siamese, If You Please." It was taken out.
Oh, yes.
It was taken out. I live in a world where Mickey Rooney cannot be an Oriental in Breakfast at Tiffany's,
Yes.
a nearly perfect movie that is marred by Mickey Rooney's appearance as her Asian landlord. I've lived long enough to know that, even 20 years ago, the name Washington Redskins coming into question would be like, why is that a problem? People are going to change.
Yes.
Gay marriage happened, and it ain't going back. Things are going to go forward. And when I say forward, meaning every generation, there's teenagers and early 20-year-old people that don't think like their parents did. And my parents didn't think like their parents. Their parents were Depression era, and my dad wore a Nehru jacket and loved the Beatles. You know what I mean? Which horrified my grandmother.
I'm into it. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh no, my dad was when my dad had his nervous
cool.
breakdown. I'm going to tell you a secret. Yeah. The soundtrack of my father's nervous breakdown was Abbey Road.
Oh my God.
He brought it home. He brought it home in the fall of It came out, I can tell you, right around Halloween of 1970. Maybe I believe it was 70. But it was the fall. Mm-hmm. And he played it obsessively. And I say, bang, bang, Maxwell's silver hammer came down on his head because there was something in that album that made him think, I can't live the life I'm expected to think. I don't want to be a Latino married father of 3. I want to wear a dashiki and bang my secretary. Whatever that means. Whatever that means. But, whether or not we like it, because there's things that I don't like that I see coming down the pike. I got to be honest with you. It took me a minute to get used to transgender bathrooms. Mm-hmm. I don't like going in a bath. I won't let a man use my bathroom in my house. I always have to have a 2-bathroom, at least a powder room. I don't like wiener in my bathroom. I don't like it.
I'm warned.
Yeah. Hey, don't threaten me with a good time. But yeah, you know what I mean? Like, I had to get used to the idea that when I go in the bathroom at Burger Lounge that a man may have urinated on the seat or not put it up or not put it, whatever it is. I had to wrap my head around transgender bathrooms because I don't like men in my bathroom. It's a thing.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
I don't mind men in my bathroom.
I've heard rumors.
That's how it goes.
Yeah.
But
how do you feel about ladies?
I love ladies. Ladies are, they're good for bathrooms.
Yeah, we have perfume and poopery. We're ready to rock.
That is one thing about a men's bathroom, and I know it's very different, especially because, women's bathroom lines, especially at sports games and concerts, are sports games. Boy, that sounded authentic.
Yeah, sports games. Shows what a sportsman you are.
I'm a sports game.
When I was watching a sports game the other night, the Dodgers won.
But there's always occasional women who will go, I have to pee, and all the guys let her in to use the stall first. Yeah. So it's a pretty common occurrence.
It is. And by the way, in plenty of restaurants that are still marked boy and girl, like Alcove on Hillhurst, people just know, like, whichever one opens first. The lines are long. There's only 2 bathrooms. It's a one-horse town.
We could do a whole show on bathrooms.
Bathrooms are a thing. But the point I'm making is I don't want people to get their knickers in a knot when I say things are going to change inevitably. Because I think that's a fear for a lot of people.
Well, can I say that's actually been a problem with our society, and I've especially witnessed it within my field, is a blaming of the past and saying, how dare they have done this research at that time? Like the man who just had the Stanford prison experiment, Phil Zimbardo, who came from Stanford, just died at the age of 91, and he was a maverick. But basically what he did is he took a bunch of Stanford students, he split them in half randomly, he put half as guards, half as cellmates or in prison, and put them in for a week, and had to stop the experiment only after a few days because the
beatings and butt sex.
No. In fact, what happened is that the prisoners started to really dive in on themselves, become depressed and dejected, and the guards started to become sadistic and abusive. Yeah. And so he had to stop the experiment, but it showed how just those random factors,
atmosphere, energy.
And that's why I think, people blame him for having that experiment, but I'm like, that was a super important experiment that helped explain a lot, number one. But number two, we won't repeat that experiment because we know the result of it.
Well, don't you remember when they had back in the day when they would have people shock people that were smoking? Yeah. And that people just got really like, I see you holding that.
That was the Schick Center, which was a commercial nationwide here. It was a huge deal. Yeah. And they'd say, stop smoking, Schick Center, and they would shock them. Yeah. But all it did was create this weird like neurosis.
Yeah.
But can I just say what anxiety
It's
is,
your
and then we'll
show.
talk about the rest?
You
Oh
can say
no,
whatever you want.
Jamie, can you put up the slide of anxiety? But basically, anxiety, and why we're talking about election anxiety is that you have this perception of catastrophe, this perception of a severe thing coming at you over a perceived ability to cope. So it's really either this, we're envisioning something big happening to us and we can't handle it. That's what makes anxiety grow.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I really have to say that what we do with our election anxiety right now is because we're getting closer and closer to Election Day, which is tomorrow, and we're probably not going to know the results tomorrow, anxiety is going to keep going up until we know the result. And even if people are disappointed with the result, it will let out some of the air. Some of the anxiety will go down. And some people, you're right, will become more depressed. So we have to deal with both leading up to the election, what to do during our anxious moments, and how to deal with the depression after. I think to take the 10,000-foot view is exactly what you're doing.
Yeah.
Is to be able to stand up and say, does this really matter? And you know who I saw did that same perspective just this morning?
Who?
Was the Onion News Network, which is a fake news network. If you don't know the Onion News, you have to go and check it out because they're absolutely brilliant. But they basically were kind of going into a voter's brain, into a micro level. And he goes, can we pull out a little bit? Because, to go beyond and to go out into the city, into the county, into the state. And then they go, how about, and he went way up into the atmosphere, like a million miles away. And he goes, up here, it really doesn't matter at all, basically. And I thought, that's exactly right.
Well, or even in 100 years, there's two things that I bank on, and that's kids and crime. So, and when I say that jokingly, there's a lot of money that's unaccounted for, that's invisible money, that has a lot to do with our structure being the way it is. In fact, when marijuana was legalized, a whole lot of people were just as unhappy. They were just invisibly unhappy because they're criminals. But if you think they're just going to step aside and go, yeah, screw me, this farm that I had in the middle of nowhere in NorCal is a bust now. No. There was a whole lot of people that had to change their model and their lives, an economy, when marijuana was legalized.
That's true.
So what I tell people is, for every visible action, there is an invisible reaction. So there's a whole lot of people dependent on the system being the way it is, whether you want to say it's broken, it's not broken, whatever the system is, there's a whole lot of remoras, there's a whole lot of parasites, there's a whole lot of underbelly bloodsuckers that can't allow the system to fall, because the mafia doesn't do well in certain settings. Organized crime of any kind doesn't do well in certain settings, and the kids are marinating. Whether you want to call them indigo kids, Gen Zers, whatever, people under 25. My mother has suddenly become woke, like waste of my time. But, she's been a pain in my ass for, 5.5 decades. But she's woke now. She's pro women's rights. She wasn't that thrilled when, I had some decisions to make. But that's not the point. The point is that a lot of women of a certain generation are now thinking, in a weird way, like, when I'm old, I will wear purple. It's like, when I'm old, I will vote blue. So my mom and I were having a whole conversation about this today, and come to find out, people within my own family flew to Cuba when it was necessary.
Wow.
Yeah, and I can tell you this: my mother's grandmother, my grandfather, was had a horrible life and lived in doorways and delivering people's newspapers until he could come to Ybor City because his mother died getting an illegal abortion, and that was never discussed. Like, what did she die of? Whatever. Now, all of a sudden, people are having these conversations. Mm-hmm. And I believe that what is happening in a weird way, I always say we have a flavor in us. Mm-hmm. And you don't know what your flavor is till you're squeezed and you come out the top of the bottle. Like, what's your flavor? And I think that in a weird way, there's an opportunity now because everyone's being squeezed and we're seeing their flavors. And, I'm seeing that, even to address your comment, I adore you, as you well know. I've said it on and off camera.
Oh, I feel something coming.
No, I adore you.
I do too.
In the event that, Donald Trump becomes president and he's a king and a despot and he's, having the time of his life just giving handies to Putin or whatever we think's
and
gonna,
microphones, yeah.
whatever we think's going to happen. I'm trying to be careful. It doesn't matter because it's, again, the gift of my brother's death. He's old and he's going to die.
Yeah, he is. And he actually seems like he's slowing way down. And his cognitive ability is really declined. I mean, it's been notable from a neurological point of view.
I do not believe that America as it is, I don't think the kids and the criminals are going to let it change significantly.
No, I think you're right. I think, you're right. And at the same time,
no matter who's in office.
I was a huge student of World War II.
Me too.
Yeah, I was such a goon that I took classes voluntarily at UCLA on the Holocaust for the whole year, 1 year, because I was just fascinated. And we had some amazing scholars. But I think the most frightening tale to me about what was happening during that time is that the people just sort of kind of sleptwalked.
And that's not happening now. Everyone's wide awake at the wheel.
No,
whether you like what they're doing, they're awake.
We definitely have more awake people because we don't have sort of that non-critical acceptance of what's being told.
Oh, no. Yeah. And social media, let's face it, 1939 couldn't happen in 2024. There was no social media.
No.
I mean, at the end of the day, whether you want to say that people accept whatever the two sides are, like I remember even when Obama won 16 years ago, the October surprise, and I remember thinking, boy, God must really love Obama, because do you remember all of that stuff that came out about the economy? And, George Bush just took it in the shorts, like right in October.
Yeah,
the meltdown.
If you
watch The Big Short,
way.
it was like a bar graph.
Right.
But because, in all fairness to W, the economy was the economy. A lot of stuff was put into motion long before he was in office. In all fairness to him, subprime loans, like what people don't realize, and I'm going to put it in very personal terms, when people are getting a divorce and they're having a horrible time, I'm the perfect person to talk to. In my next life, I'll be a lawyer. But this is what I tell all my friends. Your problems did not start in court. They're not going to end in court. It was a series of decisions. It was beliefs. It was your upbringing. It might have been something your second grade teacher said that made it okay for you to marry this person to begin with. Like, if you go back and really go through the timeline of your life and how you ended up there, to be very clear, and I'm looking at all the cameras that I can at once, ladies and gentlemen, your issues of your life did not begin and end in the White House or in the Washington or on Capitol Hill. Whatever it is, it's tripping your trigger. It's never about the thing. It's 8 things below.
Yeah.
Ask yourself what you're afraid of and what you believe will happen in whatever happens tomorrow. I am not afraid of either candidate.
Well, this is because you're not based in fear. So
No.
if we're going to talk about people prone to anxiety, they're more based in fear. And there are people who are born naturally they have a higher propensity toward anxiety.
Confession time.
You?
Are you ready for
Yeah.
deep confession? I'm actually switching out journals so I can read to you what I wrote this morning.
Yeah.
Okay. I wrote this morning in preparation to come to you. I didn't think it was going to go this way. Are you ready?
Yeah.
All right. Here is my truth today, : and I'll show it to you. You guys can screenshot this.
There you go.
Here is my truth today. I have spent so much of my life in fear, bordering on terror, and got here anyway.
Wow.
Lord, it is 8:05 a.m. and my eyes are welling up with deliverance yet again. I have feared, : the government, the IRS, insurance companies, credit card companies, landlords, bookers, the industry, lovers, husbands, fans, and followers, rejection, abandonment, being alone, unloved, never having real love, intimacy, or sex again, and on and on. These are all things I've journaled about for years.
Wow.
Because I'm such an unusual person and I outgrow people. All of our biggest fear is really about being unloved. It's not about money or hanging on to our money. It's not about politics. It really comes down to, is whoever in the White House going to put you in a position of being less loved or abandoned? If I lose my money, if I lose my rights, if I can't get an abortion, if I can get an abortion, if we're very honest with ourselves on the micro level, my fear has nothing to do with anything in the White House. It has to do with, I'm a peculiar woman. I'm a selective taste. I outgrow people. Will I ever have a companion that will walk shoulder to shoulder with me, that I can have? I don't even have to have screaming hot monkey sex, just like an occasional clearing out of the carburetor. I'm happy just to make out and roll around. It's not even wiener focused, you know? You know what I mean? Like, if I'm honest with myself, my fear is abandonment, because that's what tripped my trigger in childhood.
So, wow.
Yeah. I saved that for you.
Because I don't think people know that is very diametrically opposed as to how I've known you.
Because I don't give in to any of this.
No.
When people tell me, they go, oh my God, you're a comedian. You're so brave. You stand on stage. You do this, you do that. I say to them, I'm afraid of everything. For the record, I'm afraid of being old, fat, irrelevant, delusional, never getting laid again. I'm afraid of all of these things. But I'm way more afraid of what will happen to me if I give in to any of them an inch. And if nothing else, I want to serve as an advocate for joy. And the only way to be joyful is to fight fear. Fear and joy cannot live in the same space.
Absolutely.
Period,
Here.
full stop.
Here. I believe that the fear and love actually are diametrically opposed.
Absolutely.
Emotions.
But to me, love and joy are the same thing. When you feel
love and joy
loved,
they're
love
they're
and
in that
joy
same
are the same.
positive,
And I tell people,
exactly.
you will not be any less loved tomorrow. And if you're feeling unloved, let's talk about that. Because whoever's in the White House isn't going to ever, there might be 3 people that I'm wrong about this. Whoever is in the White House is never going to come to your house. They're never going to make you a PB&J. They're never going to take your temperature. They're never going to ask you how you're feeling. Never, never, until infinity turns into eternity, is anybody living in Washington, D.C. going to care on the level that we need them to care as human beings.
So can I confess something that's not as personal, but is something that shows what a goon I am? Because when I was in 4th grade, I truly believed that the president was going to come to my house. And I'm not kidding, it was President Nixon at the time. And
I think my parents voted for him.
Oh, yeah. I was in a parade for George McGovern that we arranged as
George
kids.
McGovern, 1972.
In 4th grade.
We were in the same grade. We're the same age.
Oh,
it was a leap year.
Yeah. So anyway.
I remember it well.
Long story short is that I had my curtains in red, white, and blue, like American flag, with stars and stripes, the whole thing. I had a corner unit. Remember corner units? I had a corner. It was like a couch in a corner that had 2
and then it
single
had storage.
beds.
It had
and
storage.
It had storage.
Yeah, my brothers had those instead of bunk beds.
Oh yeah, and I had, it was red vinyl with
theirs was black.
Red, white, and blue bedspread. I mean, it was a full-on like flag fest in my bedroom, and I thought, okay, like I was, as a child, I thought there's something wrong with Nixon, and other kids thought that too. Now, all the parents in my neighborhood, I grew up in a very conservative area. All the kids.
Where did you grow up?
Huntington Beach, California, which is still to this day very conservative.
Oh,
but
there's pockets.
And but nonetheless, it's that all the kids were like, there's something wrong. And we were just little kids. We could see that this man, there was something going on. Like, he didn't seem right. He seemed evil or whatever we thought at that time. Because when you're a kid, you just bifurcate. You just say, it's one or the other. And I was, and then I went to a point where I just accepted it. And I said, well, if he comes to my house, and he's probably going to come swing on by, but, he never did. And I was always a little disappointed that I had this room that was ready to go. And
even still, as much as history, looks down its nose on Richard Milhous Nixon, who was a Quaker from Yorba Linda. Here's what I will tell you about Richard Milhouse Nixon, because I too am a nerd and a student of history. Number one, he opened relations with China.
The number one thing he did that's probably the most valuable thing he did, and that was people don't understand today how groundbreaking that was back then.
Was resign.
Oh, well, no.
He opened
China thing.
No, he opened China, which was unbelievable.
To resign, actually.
Resign was a very big deal.
Yes, that was.
Now, you know damn well that that people
happen.
would hold tight and go like, never did it, didn't do it, not. I mean, we've impeached people that just. I mean, in all fairness to Bill Clinton was impeached and just said so.
Well, so to go to follow that line, Donald Trump recently at a rally said his big mistake is that he left the White House, is that he did leave. So, I mean, does that cause you concern?
No.
Okay.
And I'm going to tell you so much of what
just testing the boundaries.
No, here's the thing about Donald Trump that I see, and maybe it's because I'm a stand-up. He's a provocateur. The problem that most people don't get is that I think he has a sort of a P.T. Barnum showman's brain. I think that to take what he says literally...
He's 100% P.T. Barnum.
But the point I'm making is to take him literally all the time would cause anyone anxiety.
Yeah.
I mean, even his own people who are around him and close, have made public comments about, oh, that's just Donnie or whatever. I mean, I don't know that they call him Donnie, but you get my point. Is that here's a guy who's was a brand for his braggadocio, for that's his brand, and for people to get knickered up about the brand is if you want to get your knickers in a knot, there's a lot of stuff behind the brand that potentially could cause consternation. But just trash talking, to me, that's just a Vince McMahon thing. Like,
yeah, it's undignified, but nonetheless, it's allowed.
It's not presidential, but it's most certainly not. You know what I mean? Like,
right?
Yeah, I mean, have we ever had a person in the White House who was married to a person who we've seen their nipple in public? Like, what? Like, nobody ever saw.
Didn't we see more than a nipple?
Well, I didn't look. I just saw a
That's
nipple.
You're referring to his wife
who
was in
Melania.
Yeah.
But the upshot is, and I want to bring it back to the micro life. I always talk about the micro life. The intersection, the you are here spot. That's what I always talk about, the you are here spot. The you are here spot of my life is that I've been alive, when people go like, oh, this is the worst thing that's ever happened. Well, and, when I was a little girl, 4 students were shot at Kent State in cold blood. That was bad.
Really bad.
Yeah. Guess what? Vietnam, not a party. Not a party. Nixon ended Vietnam. He said he would. He got elected on that promise, and he did it.
And he did it. One of my biggest memories, and I've talked about this before, I don't know if it was yours as well, was watching the television news at the time, because every night they showed the bodies being lifted out of the bed. You saw the coffins coming out of the plane, and they would play the music, and you would be like, there were 17 people, blah, blah, blah.
I remember the My Lai massacre. I remember the little girl running down the street on fire with the napalm fire on her back. It was a very famous image. Yeah. I believe it was in Life magazine. Mm-hmm. But we as Americans have prevailed and survived so many incredible moments because I refuse to surrender the belief that people are good. I refuse to surrender that belief.
I believe that
There's a handful of people at the top on both sides that know how to upset and provoke, and maybe one side's more provocative than the other. But that being said, I have too many friends with too much of a variety of beliefs that are still good people. Good people. And I refuse to I know that sounds, very Anne Frank, but I very much believe that if push came to shove, no matter who somebody voted for, if there was an apocalypse, I would give that person water or crackers or...
Oh, absolutely.
Exactly.
I mean, I couldn't even imagine someone turning their back on somebody just because of who they voted for.
But in a weird way, until it comes down to that, because even in my feed now, people are, there's stuff on my 330 feed where they're going back and forth. But I just understand energy. And what's going on now from the 30,000, not the 10,000, the 30,000 foot view, is that we're having a tectonic shift. You can thank social media, you can thank technology, you can thank, hospital births. I still watch Call the Midwife. You can watch, you can look at so many indicators that started decades before this election.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That we would be here.
Oh,
Decades, yeah. Whether it was burning your bra. I mean, it's hard for me to believe that even in England, if you watch a very British scandal, which is true, that, being homosexual in England was illegal until like the early 70s. Like, what?
Like in
That's
prison,
the gayest
illegal.
country on earth.
Like, no, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Deal.
Like a lot of people don't realize that one of the greatest writers of all time, and his name just went out of my head, but he was with the guy who
Oscar Wilde.
Oscar Wilde, the Cusenberry. There was a whole style of fighting, and he was lovers with the fighting guy.
Oh.
I think it's Cusenberry. But anyway, the upshot of it is that Oscar Wilde did prison time.
Yes.
One of the greatest minds of the
brilliant.
Was imprisoned for what now goes on in the alley behind the Abbey on any given Sunday by 2:30.
The love that dare not speak its name after 2:30 in the morning. But yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting thing. There's a saying that history repeats itself, but history doesn't repeat itself.
No, nothing repeats
but
itself.
But it rhymes. And we did
Patterns.
did go through a period of this during the 30s as we were leading up into World War II. There was a divide in this country. One part of the country was very strongly pro-Nazi, and one was very anti-Nazi. And there was a big division going up to this, and then we aligned, of course, with the Western Europe and but not
Take
Germany.
Take it back to Prohibition. We wouldn't organized crime got an enormous foothold in this country because a handful of yahoos decided that nobody could drink. Now, keep in mind, I don't drink, smoke, do drugs, never have.
That was Carrie Nation, by the way.
Yeah,
What
well,
a
I'm
great
well
name.
aware, but there's so much more she was the...
She was just the figurehead.
She was the tippy, but it was a whole lot of other people. She was actually probably... I'm sure she's one of those people that if we look her up, she was a puppet. They're always a puppet. The person who's behind the big thing is always a puppet. So the upshot is think about what happened I mean, Prohibition went on for well over a decade. The FBI was born of Prohibition. Bootleggers were born of Prohibition. The Kennedys were born of Prohibition. I mean, think about enormous, powerful institutions that are still in power. Got into power 100 years ago because a handful of people said, no one can drink.
So what do we do about our impending anxiety? Because I, for one, even feel it. I didn't know if it was anxiety about the show today because I'm like, oh, my God. Or was it...
we're doing something we've never done.
Because we're doing something we've never done. Or is it anxiety about the election? And I am concerned about it. And I realized, even as we were talking, because the one thing that's kind of fascinating about Donald Trump is he's the shiny object. And we haven't talked about Kamala Harris and the concerns around her. And I hear those all the time, too. She's not as shiny, though. But she, concerns about her being a woman, or people don't want to talk about their sexism. They come up with any other excuse on that. But the bottom line is they've great concerns. They feel like she won't be good in the room. She won't be powerful enough.
Like Germany, New Zealand, I think Margaret Thatcher, love her or hate her, nobody said, that Margaret Thatcher,
Iron Lady.
She's a puss. You know what I mean? Like she just goes down like a house of cards. The queen looks at her sideways and she's weeping. Like if you watch The Crown, like Margaret Thatcher was the definition of a buster of gonads.
Or Angela Merkel, another tough cookie.
Yeah. So look,
Indira Gandhi.
Yeah. No, the list goes on and on. We're kind of very late to this show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We're very, very late to this show, if indeed that's the way it goes down. Here's the focus, though. Because when I came into this today, I specifically really wanted to talk about voodoo and get back to voodoo. Because whatever your beliefs are, is either person in the White House going to get me any closer to a permanent companion with a decently working wiener. No. You know what I mean? Like,
I did want to call this show Erection Anxiety, but I thought that wouldn't hit.
I'm putting it in a very visceral, base way. But whatever happens tomorrow is not going to pay off my credit card debt. It's not going to match me up with a guy who loves the Princess Bride. It's not going to, the things that
All
are.
the women love that guy.
My name is Inigo Montoya. but the things that are vexing me, if you want to call them that today, are not going to go away because of whoever's in the White House. They're not. That they could be. That I could go in a booth and draw a curtain and say, push a couple of buttons, and when I got home, there'd be a guy waiting on my front porch, or there would be, anything. I mean, a pile of money, or a list of bookings, or whatever my day-to-day challenges, or, get booked, show up, be funny, get paid, dodge the club owner with the wandering phalanges, all of that's my life. And I guarantee you that every single person on all of these streams has a life. Go to the grocery store, find good deals. Inflation is out of control. Guess what? Whoever's in office tomorrow, inflation's not going to change in a year or two. It's not. It's not going to suddenly be like, oh my God, gas is $2 and bread's $1.50. Woo! That's not going to happen. It's not.
No.
And what's very, very challenging, I think, to most people.
People who think that don't know how the economy works, but yes.
No, they don't. It's a big, unwieldy. Yeah. That's why I'm saying this moment in time where we're dancing on the head of a pin has been coming for decades. Yeah. It has to do with technology. It has to do with the economy. It has to do with the have and have-nots. It has to do with social media. It has to do with our perception of, if some people think that normalizing, I'm going to talk about like 5 ships that have sailed, forget abortion. There were people that thought that normalizing gay was going to be the end of family life. No one would have children.
Well,
Guess what?
Was the
that was the fight.
That
Guess
was
what?
the election promise that it would end marriage as we know it.
Right. Yeah. Guess what? Gay people are married, and they
all it did was make them boring. I mean, let's face it.
You guys had it made.
Yeah.
Like you broke up, you had a garage sale. I remember just driving down West Hollywood, just picking up Liza Minnelli albums and busts of the statue of David on for cheap, and you know what I mean? Like, you think I'm kidding, but I lived here in the 90s.
No,
I got a lot of when gay guys broke up, they had the best stuff on the lawn,
they
man.
Always do.
Yeah,
always.
Of course, duh. But it's whatever you think is, I'm sure that there's people that secretly are sorry that slavehood ended. You know what I mean? Like, there's probably people in South Carolina.
There are people that have continued to say that.
I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
When I say things, the fact that people are fighting to keep the stars and bars flying over capitals is like, what?
Yeah.
Like, what? But here's what I believe.
Yes.
They're not in the majority.
No.
They're not in
That's
the
true.
Mean, divisive people are not in the majority. They're not even close to a majority.
So how do we open our arms to those who are not perhaps in alignment with our thinking, whether in the majority or in the minority? How do we come together as a people?
How do we come together as a people? I think by normalizing old school neighborhood values. And when I say that, I mean, I remember even when I was a young woman, and my first person I voted for was Ronald Reagan. I was a senior in high school.
Right on.
And I remember that you could tell people things and no one got ugly. They go like, why? Well, Reaganomics, trickle down theory. Whatever your ideas were why you voted for that candidate, the other person would be like, oh, well, I don't agree with that, but, good on you. You're still my neighbor. If the zombie apocalypse happens, then, I'm here with some crackers and water. And I think that the ability to respectfully allow other people to have different opinions. You know what? I I am a strong, because of what I do, even my video that went viral that you can't change a man. Do you know how many people write hateful comments under it of like, well, you're the one that's been divorced 3 times. You're the problem. Or being married to her must be a nightmare. She used to be hot. What happened to her face? Bad lighting and grief. But
my God.
you can't even imagine
I do believe
the
it.
abuse that I've taken.
I do believe
and being
it,
a radio personality and being highly visible. I remember when Abu Ghraib happened. I was on the radio in Indianapolis. And I said...
That was torture in Afghanistan.
I said...
But here in...
And I said, as an American, how do these pictures make you feel? That's all I said. I'll never forget it.
It was torture by Afghani soldiers, by American soldiers.
I said, as an American, how does it make you feel? People almost came to Monument Circle where the station was with like Frankenstein torches thinking that I was being un-American. I wasn't being un-American. I was just like, do 2 wrongs make a right? Are we going to go as low as they... Like, I had very strong feelings about those pictures. I wasn't in any way. I mean, how many people have done USO tours and gone to Iraq during wartime to perform when they didn't have to in this room? I'm going to guess only me. Only me. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there was mortar. The place I performed in Mosul blew up 3 weeks after I was standing in a cafeteria performing.
Wow.
So the reality is I'm not even remotely unpatriotic or un-American. I am not political. Not the same thing. I love this country, and I believe in the process.
Yeah.
I believe that whatever happened with the Supreme Court, with, in the event that Donald Trump became president, I really don't think that the checks and balances would allow him to dismantle democracy as we know it and make him what, an emperor? Is that what we're afraid is going to happen?
I mean, I think that is the bottom line fear of people who are afraid of him getting into the White House. And I do think there's a subset of people who are his fans or, followers who do want him to have more power than he did in the last term. So I think that's a realistic sort of notion inside of people's head. Whether that happens or not, we don't know. And I think that's exactly what you're saying, is that this may not be a realistic fear.
What I will tell you about this is that what's very interesting to me is that we're talking about the White House and politics when, to me, as a woman, I see social media as an attack on young women's mental health. Just like some parents are really upset about vaping.
Yes.
There's parents that are flipped out about vaping. And they've gone up, there's all kinds of articles about how parents are trying to make vaping illegal because it's so attractive to young kids who like, oh, cigarettes are disgusting, but this little delicious lollipop that smells like bubble gum is awesome, and that's...
It's even harder to quit.
That's terrifying. But the fact that we now have a construct in this country where a young woman can say, my light bill's due and I don't have any money. Oh, I know what I'll do. I'll start an OnlyFans account and show strange men my boobs. Then I can pay my light bill. The fact that social media has sped up the ability for young women to be exploited, to exploit themselves, to compete, it's Thunderdome. It is Thunderdome. And that enslavement and control and exploitation is terrifying to me. And nobody's talking about that.
No, but I think that is, some people are talking about it, like the Margaret Atwoodization. Margaret Atwood wrote...
I know who she is, A Handmaid's Tale.
Handmaid's Tale, thank you.
She wrote that, that's where Liam Neeson met Natasha Richardson. It was originally a film.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of a fun fact.
Well, just in case you wonder hey, have you ever heard of Margaret Atwood? Yeah, when the movie was made in the 80s. Yeah.
Well, it's a very compelling tale, and bottom line is that women are subjugated. They basically have their rights stripped from them, and it's basically this fear about the future. So about what may happen if women's
I think
rights
social
are
media is going to do it much faster than a courtroom.
I see that happening. Yeah.
It's terrifying to me.
Because people are walking into it voluntarily.
These cam girls, there's young women that are just like on camera letting like disgusting old men, shake hands with the unemployed.
Well, we need to come. Unfortunately, I can't even believe that we've gone through the time this
What?
quickly. Yeah, no, I'm completely
I
surprised.
don't know that I've alleviated anybody's fears. I feel like I got to do something in the next 3 minutes. But
let me give one. Can I just say about anxiety?
It's your show.
Because no, it's 100%. But guess you're a very important person. So, yeah, I'm very happy to have you here because it's such an important topic, and I do think you have brilliance about this. But anxiety, I do agree with you emphatically. This is a belief, and it's again a belief that the bad thing's going to happen and we aren't going to be able to handle it. What I want people to know is there are things they can do. I really go back to the serenity prayer. Give me the strength to accept the things I cannot change, to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference, because that helps give us a guide about how to deal with anxiety, because there are some things we cannot change, but the things we can, we should get on it. And maybe voting is one of those things. And if you've already voted, encourage a friend to vote, or maybe do phone banking or knocking on doors or something that will help. That action will help to alleviate the anxiety and to also look at the facts that we've been a nation. Oh, yeah.
No, keep talking.
We've been a nation on a knife's edge for a while.
Decades.
In 2020, I wrote these down. In 2020, Brian Tyler Cohen, who's a political commentator, he wrote, "The small margins don't mean doom. Democrats won Georgia in 2020 by 0.2 of a point. Democrats won Wisconsin by 2020 by 0.7 of a point. Pennsylvania by 1 point. Michigan by 2 points." And I didn't even have time to go into when Republicans have won on that narrow of a margin as well, because certainly in 2016 we could say the same thing.
Both Clinton and JFK won by the smallest margin in the popular vote. I don't know if you know that.
Did not know that.
Yeah, well, go back and watch Mad Men.
So
I knew it anyway.
We can't worry because we've been there for a long time, and things will fall the way they fall and the way our system goes. But I do think it's important for us to deal with the anxiety and to help
lead with
each
love.
Other out and to lead with love. Yes.
If you change your intentions from fear to love, you just decide, you know what? I'm going to lean into this. And if I only have, I'm going to close with a Navin R. Johnson quote.
Oh, well,
from The Jerk. All I need is this journal. All I need is this journal and Katie. If Katie loves, all I need is this journal and Katie and Dr. Greg. Katie is you can't see her. She's behind the camera, and she's my TikTok mentor, protege, helper girl, 24-year-old, brilliant and delightful and positive person that I love having in my life. And, all I need is my dog. Surround yourself with what you love.
Yes.
Surround yourself. If all you can say is, I love Oreos, my pug, and, Downton Abbey, then okay.
Yes.
Then just hold on.
Yes.
To those things.
Yes, in fact, right now will be especially important. I can't even say your words of wisdom are well taken.
I love so many things, and what I'm really doing is allowing so many things to love me back. See, therein is the difference.
Ah, that is quite a one thing. We'll have to talk more about that.
We will, but the evidence that all wonderful things are brushing me on the tip of the nose is there all day, every day. Why do I choose to sometimes live in fear that nobody loves me and I should just eat worms? Why? What mechanism in my brain?
Well, I can explain it psychologically.
Not today. Because I'm choosing love. I'm leading with love. I'm fighting fear. We're going to be fine. I'm going to be fine.
But that's the solution.
And that's how I'm going to do. That's how I'm rolling.
Good. So that wraps up the show for today. Thank you, Monique. We're going to go through here. Thank you, because it is unfortunate you didn't talk to Katie, who's behind the camera. You didn't talk to Jamie, who's at the board. And there's Brian. Brian, I didn't hear a word from you this whole time.
I've just been enjoying the conversation.
Yep.
So
thank you,
I'm here
Brian.
Learning, appreciating it all.
Good.
So that wraps up the show for today. Like, subscribe, give us 5 stars. You know the drill. Go to the YouTube page, youtube.com/Dr. Greg for the show notes. We'll give you all the things. And also, if you have questions or topics, hit us up. And if this is Dr. Greg, Brian, and the incomparable, amazing Monique Marvez. thank you, bidding you farewell. Monique, we have to end on your outro.
Thank you, because right now my feed is all about people just really getting in alignment behind the love. They're just getting in alignment with it, and that is just whoa.
Tell your feed. It just makes my heart beat so much warmer. I love that. It's
Me
so
too.
amazing.
But that's the answer. Community, community, community,
I
community,
agree.
community,
We all
community.
need to hold hands and sing Kumbaya.
That's it.
So Monique's outro is to
Love hard,
forgive harder,
and get as happy as you can
as fast as you can. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Woohoo!